So, welcome everyone to our session, Brain Mental Health Journeys into Well-Being and Resilience, where we'll be exploring what it takes to thrive in this incredibly uncertain and ever-changing world. And as a way to start us off, I wanted to invite you into a brief grounding practice just to arrive in this space together. So finding a comfortable position that allows you to be alert with your spine erect but not rigid, and also relaxed, and closing your eyes or keeping them at a downward gaze, and resting your hands in an easy way. And see if you can just scan through your body, and wherever possible, just soften and release any areas of physical tension. Notice your feet on the ground, your body in your chair. Just feeling the weight of gravity, the support of the ground beneath you. Now drawing your attention to your breathing, just feeling the breath breathe itself in its natural way. The breath has always been there to support you since the moment you were born. And sensing what's right here, right now. Are you present to any strong sensations in the body? Maybe you're feeling a bit tired or sluggish. Maybe the body feels energized and light. Just noticing whatever it feels like. And checking in with your heart. How's your heart today? Does it feel open or closed or anything in between? Again, just to check in, to notice, and allowing whatever you find to be just as it is. And checking in with your mind. Does the mind feel full of thoughts? Or does it feel more calm and spacious? You're still thinking about some of the previous sessions. You're planning ahead for other sessions you might be leading or attending. Just noticing what's there in the mind. Just letting whatever is right here just be what it is. Now taking a moment to get in touch with your intention for joining us for this session. What brings you here? What makes you curious about this topic? And bringing your attention again to your breath. And taking another deep breath in and slowly breathing out. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back. So, welcome everyone. We wanted to take a moment to introduce ourselves. So, I am the facilitator for the session. I'm Sarah Marie Hopf. I'm an integral coach and a mindfulness meditation teacher. I'm also the founder of Thriving in a Noisy World, and I'm really passionate about helping leaders and change makers design a life of greatest contribution, well-being, and integrity. And I'm also a very proud Ashoka U alumni and previously led Changemaker Campus selection. And I'm very delighted to be back at the exchange this year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Iget to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah Marie. Hi, everyone. My name is Iget Ndedede. I am on the student council on Ashoka U. I'm also a student at George Mason University. I am majoring in psychology with a concentration in cognitive and behavior neuroscience. Mad Passion is mental well-being in refugees and immigrants. So I'm doing a lot of work in that realm. I have an organization that works to provide mental well-being and services to refugee and immigrant communities. I'll pass it on to Maha.
Thanks, Agat. Hello, everyone. I'm Mahalakshmi, aka Maha. I'm happy to be here with you all today and share my journey towards well being and resilience that started about 3 years ago when I came to the USA to pursue my master's program. And three facts about me: I love reading, and I discovered that I've begun to appreciate nonfiction more in the past year. I also recently discovered that dolce far niente, which is Italian for the sweetness of doing nothing, to be my weekend therapy. And Sarah Marie's grounding practice helped me ease my nervousness as we get into the session. Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Maha. And Maha will share a little bit more about the context for our framework for the session.
So, as we see in the slide, there's the wellness circle that is given by the Global Wellness Institute. But there are different schools of well being, and each of them is slightly different. So, I want to talk a little bit about why I chose three components for today. They are personal well being, healthy relationship, and having a sense of purpose. I believe that any lasting change has to come within ourselves. And it makes sense because that's the only thing we have control over. So, in my journey, after taking care of my physical well being, I realized and understood from research that as social beings, we need healthy and meaningful relationship, which is in fact a determinant of our physical health. And with my physical and social wellness, I was able to progress and direct all the efforts to understand what are my unique strengths and how can I use it to create an impact in society and thereby achieve fulfillment. And that's why for today we have these three.
Thank you for sharing that, Maha. And in terms of our session outcomes, we're really hopeful that this will be just personal journeys into well-being and resilience that can inspire you to think about practices and tools that might be helpful for fostering personal well-being, healthy relationships, and a sense of purpose in your own life, and also to really humanize mental health in this as a shared human experience that we're all struggling. And certainly within this global pandemic, we have unprecedented rates of anxiety and depression and just a lot of fear amidst all of us. So wanting to create a space where we can be real and really talk about these things openly. And in terms of the session outcomes, we would like to offer just more insight around the holistic components of brain/mental health, particularly personal well-being, healthy relationships, and a sense of purpose towards achieving resilience. So those components in particular. Then we'll share practices and tools to foster personal well-being, healthy relationships, and a sense of purpose. And then we'll invite you to do some reflection for yourself to identify 1 to 2 practices that you would like to invest in for further cultivating your own brain, mental health, and resilience. So that is the overall outcomes. And we also would like to invite you into a few ground rules for how we participate in this space. So the first one is to be as fully present as possible. So putting away any other distractions, any open tabs, so you can fully be here with us during our session. We invite you to listen, to understand. So listen with an open mind and heart, and just listen for the shared humanity in the stories and experiences and how it connects to your own story. Embrace yourself and others as whole. So really seeing the innate wholeness of all of us, that there is nothing to fix or correct. And to use I statements as you're sharing your own experience in the chat, and to observe confidentiality so that everything that's shared here stays in this space. And wanted to share this quote by Unknown, which I love. And it goes, "Some of the most comforting words in the universe are me too. That moment when you find out that your struggle is also someone else's struggle, that you are not alone, and that others have been down the same road." So with that, we'll be going into a facilitated conversation where Iget and Maha will be sharing her experiences around the 3 components of well-being that we'll be addressing today. And the first one is personal well-being, which will be about their personal journey into realizing the importance of mental health and well-being. And of course, in these times of COVID, investing in our personal well-being is more important than ever, given the tremendous uncertainty and change that's happening all around us. And yeah, and I love this quote by Vivek Murthy, which goes, "Emotional well-being is more than the absence of a mental illness. It's that resource within each of us, which allows us to reach ever closer to our full potential, and which enables us to be resilient in the face of adversity." And I think we could all use some resilience in the face of all the challenges facing us right now. So wanted to start out by asking Maha first, what led you to realize the importance of mental health as a core component of personal well-being in your own life? if you could share that story with us.
Sure. As I kind of briefly mentioned, when I had come to the US to pursue my master's program, I had little idea about how to take care of myself. And it also turned out that my tropical genes wasn't well suited for the US cold weather, and I needed to take additional effort. At that point, I realized that I was experiencing low levels of vitamin D, which is important to the functioning of brain. And it happens that the brain then helps to secrete those happy hormones, which helps us to feel good, cheerful, and positive. I also realized that one of the side effects was fatigue, and it didn't really help me to do things that I wanted to do to the best of my abilities. And that, in addition, was causing those stress. So I really wanted to fix the problem because I wanted to go through my master's program as kind of involved in research and also problem solving. And I just didn't want to survive but thrive. So just those experiences led me to learn a lot about well being and take care of myself.
Thank you for sharing that, Maha. And Iget, what led you to realizing the importance of mental health as a core component of personal well-being?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so growing up, mental health and personal well being just wasn't really taught in my community. So just taking care of like your peace, just taking a break and practicing self love to assist your mental health was just not a priority in my family. So I didn't really know how that looked like, and because mental health came with a stigma, it was difficult for my parents and my family to um, help us learn, or also them to learn about mental well-being. And you can't really be mad at them because they're coming from generation and generation of trauma, so they don't think about taking care of their mental well-being. They're on a drive, like they have to work to make sure that they're meeting their needs. But specifically for me, I didn't learn about mental well-being, the mind, and how prolonged stress can affect their personal and well-being until I was in college. It was until I was diagnosed with PTSD that I started actually taking care of my mental and personal well-being. And that's when I actually realized that your mental state has everything to do with how you function. And also, as a psychology student, it was definitely helpful to have the knowledge of the brain and just having a clear understanding of what actually happens in the brain when you experience prolonged stress, and when you're not doing anything to help yourself. And that actually scared me. It scared me into taking more care of myself. A great example is the pandemic. We have the stress of not being able to see people. We are social creatures, so when we're not doing what we're created to do, it becomes a stressor. We're also isolated. We live in constant fear of getting exposed to the virus. So all of that is a stressor, and all of that can change our brain makeup. Um, it can change the volume of your brain, and it can also activate biological systems, such as like the flee or flight response. And when you're in those states for such a long time, that's when you can develop mental illnesses and immune disorders and so on. So just to get back to your question, Sarah Marie, my experience and my knowledge on the brain has really helped me realize the importance of mental health and personal well-being.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's powerful to hear both of your very personal stories into well-being. And Maha, I'm curious, what well-being practices have been most helpful in your journey?
Sure. I first think it has to start from my physical health. So every day I make sure I eat 5 different fruits and vegetables throughout my meals and get at least 30 minutes of physical activity, if not every day, at least every other day. And sometimes, as for everyone, work comes in the way, and if I know that I wouldn't be able to make it out for a walk, I make sure that rather than sitting for 8 hours at a stretch, I attend some of the meetings by standing or doing some of the work by not sitting. And definitely, I would add that journaling and self introspection has also helped me in that regard.
Beautiful. So both the physical practices of taking care of your body and also the self-reflection, self-awareness
Hmm.
practices. Great. Yeah. Do you have a journaling prompt that you like to use, or is it just free flow
It's
journaling?
just a free flow, or if something significant has happened and I just want to make a note of the learning, or if I'm really confused about something and want some clarity, then I try to just like let it be free flow. And at the end, I've always had better clarity than with what I went in.
Yeah, it's a very powerful practice. Thanks for sharing that. And Iget, how about you?
Sure. Yeah, so kind of similar to Maha's well-being practices, I too have that self-awareness of what's going on mentally, physically, emotionally. And I try, or I make sure that I take at least a lazy day out of the week. Just because with school, with work, with other activities that I'm in, it can get like really overwhelming, and it affects our body, how we function, our brain. So I take out a lazy day out of the week, and in that lazy day, I either do a face mask, or I watch something that I really enjoy. Um, and I've also been, since the pandemic, I've got into plants. So just waking up and feeding the plants makes me feel better when I am not my best. And it has really been really helpful. And I also journal as well. I keep track of my emotions and my feelings, and then I go back to it and try to figure out how I can work on my emotions and the feelings that I'm feeling. Um, yeah.
Hmm, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I love that you're taking a day just to be a human being rather than a human doing.
Yeah.
Right? I think just taking that time, because our society is so driven to constantly do and work,
Hmm.
that can be a radical act to take some time to just create some spaciousness and for restoration. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Yeah, and just from my own experience along the lines of journaling, I found it to be very helpful to have a gratitude journaling practice. So to write down 3 things that I'm grateful for every day, just to look for what's good and to ground me in that.
Looks valuable, especially at these times when
Right.
it's like nothing is good happening in the world.
Yes, yes, and there's always the little things that
Hmm.
one can appreciate, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's a flower or spring that's gonna come at some point, or note from a friend. So many
Hmm.
things to be grateful for. And wanted to open it up to the audience. Are there any questions that you have around what Maha and Iga just shared for personal well-being practices? Anything you're curious about that you would like to hear more about? You can just type it in the chat. And if there are no questions at this time, then we'll go on to the next component, and we'll have more time afterwards to for any Q&A. So the next component of well-being that we'll talk a bit about is healthy relationships. And of course, during this pandemic, we've all been more isolated than we may have ever been in our lives, with physical distancing and not being able to spend time with loved ones or colleagues or friends. So can create a sense of isolation, loneliness, feeling disconnected. And we are very much social creatures, so we need human connection. We need to be in community. And as Esther Perel so powerfully says, the quality of our relationships determines the quality of our lives. So it is a huge component of well-being and health to have really meaningful and healthy relationships in our lives. And so wanted to ask you, Iget, how have you been tending to relationships in your life, and also maybe during this time of pandemic, if you would like to speak to that?
Yes, sure. Thank you. So it's honestly have been a bit easy for me. I'm not that social. So it actually works out in many ways. But because I'm far away from my family and I'm not able to see my friends on the day to day, social media has been really helpful. Um, our friend group create a check-in system where we're all making sure that we're checking in with one another and just making sure that everyone is okay. I know during the pandemic, we become so isolated and we forget to update everyone on how are you mentally, physically, emotionally, and you just get in that like comfort zone. So we've helped one another work on communicating more and just making sure that that everyone knows that we're all there for one another, and it's been really helpful. Before then it was kind of difficult not communicating, just because it was just like really like, okay, do I want to say something, but I'm exhausted, talking is exhausting.
Mm.
But creating that check-in system has really been helpful, and just making sure that I also call and check in on my friends as well. My siblings call me every other day, so that's been like really helpful and just staying alive. They keep me alive in many ways, their
Mm.
energy. So yeah, that's how I've been building my relationships and just making sure that um, they're healthy. So
Thank you for sharing that. And for that check-in system, is that a group that you are a part of, and is it text-based, or do you chat? Like, do you get together on a FaceTime chat or Zoom and talk, or what does it look like?
yeah, so it's just a friend group. It's the
Mm-hmm.
four of us. We do a FaceTime at the end of the week, or if someone feels like there's something that they need help with emotionally, we have
Mm-hmm.
a group chat where when you call, it calls everyone. So no, like everyone knows that there's a call coming. So there's something that's going on. So let's stop what we're doing and be of help. But yeah.
Wow, that's powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you have any agreements in that group that might be helpful for others to know about?
Agreements? Sorry, do you mind
Yeah,
going?
like how you want to be there for each other, or
Mhm.
how you want to support each other.
Yes. So we've actually talked about how to be there for one another, whether it's we want them to listen or want us to listen, or they want us to give feedback or advice. And that's something that I'm also actually working on with my relationship with my boyfriend. It's when we are communicating, and there's times where we communicate, but we're not really seeking for advice. We just want you to listen. So those are the kind of agreements that we've been talking about, just to make sure that everyone is heard and they feel heard.
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. Just the power of being listened to
Yes.
is incredible, and to not jump into advice immediately, or to ask for permission to give advice, or to ask for advice specifically. Yeah, it can be very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And Maha, how about you? How have you been fostering healthy relationships in your life?
Sure. I think I began by acknowledging, yes, it's a really hard time, and the whole of humanity have realized what it is to lose the sense of touch. Like, if we are not in close places, like hugs are no more possible, even handshakes. So I kind of acknowledge that, and I also acknowledge that I have no control over the pandemic except to social distance or to get the vaccine whenever it's my turn. So I start with, okay, these are the restrictions I have now, but still how I can have a sense of belonging and at the same time have those meaningful relationships, which are very important, especially at these times. So I tried to personalize them. So at the start of the pandemic, I knew travel wasn't going to be an option anytime soon. So I decided to travel with memories, and I wanted to create a photo wall in my room. And my instant reaction was, okay, let me go to YouTube, see a video of how it's done, and get it done. But then I paused myself and decided that I can get on call with my mother, my families, and other friends. And we just came up with this layout while I was conversing with her. And as the photos went up the wall, we were able to recollect those memories and still have those connections. And even after that, meaningful conversations and relationship has been important to me rather than going out. So for New Year, it would have been the same every year, but I kind of made sure that I just don't wish everybody a happy new year, but kind of trying to understand their perspective with the pandemic about how the past year has been for them. What do they look forward to in the new year? And then a few weeks back, I had the chance to talk a few of them and kind of ask them how we have been progressing on that, and kind of mutually learning from each other by sharing those very specific journey has helped me still feel belonged and having that strong sense of connection.
Thank you for sharing that. It sounds like you've been really designing within the constraints of these times for meaningful connection and ways to check in with people and bring up good memories, right? Do some reminiscing together.
Yeah.
I love that, by the way. I'm gonna steal that and use it.
Oh, I would be happy to see that. Yeah, feel free to.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, if you have more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Maybe we'll just get to all the questions at the end of the facilitated conversation. So moving on to our next component, which is sense of purpose. And of course, given the tremendous uncertainty of these times, we can feel a bit groundless, and can be really hard to make plans for the future, given there's so much unknown about how the next few months will unfold. And yeah, it can be difficult to be living at this time and to be with so much change and disruption and loss. And that's where a sense of purpose can be really helpful. And as Viktor Frankl said, those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. And I know that we're all brought together by beautiful purpose here to reinvent higher education and to really empower young change makers across the world. So that's a beautiful purpose. And what are your own personal purposes for what you do in your work and in your life? And I'm curious, Maha, what has that been like for you? Why is sense of purpose important, and how have you been going about finding yours?
Yeah, I very much agree with the quote. Like, once you kind of identify your sense of purpose, any obstacle or hindrance or the uncertainty, as we see in the pandemic, we find ways to tackle through that. For me, it came about like, what would you do if nobody asked you to do that, or if your living wasn't dependent on it? What is it something that I would do that is just for my own joy and for nothing else, constrained by nothing else? So kind of working through that has helped me identify my purpose. And also it happened in such a way that it speaks to some of my unique strength. For example, I like to read a lot and also like to solve problems that concerns human well-being or health. And from there, I decided, okay, something like research in a healthcare field would be something that is optimal to me. At the same time, I also understand that not all of us are very lucky to find the opportunities that pays us, as well as kind of speak to our strength and passion. But I think it's a lifelong journey, and just keeping at it all through the way would help us attain that finally, or as and when things work for each one of us.
Hmm. Yeah, and how would you articulate that purpose for you at this moment? What comes up for you?
At this moment, I think it's going back to my strengths, to be a researcher and also contributing to meaningful work that impacts or improves people's well-being and health.
Hmm. Beautiful. And were there any practices that helped you in clarifying that purpose?
I would definitely say trial and error, and it was really hard to kind of understand the distinction. Okay, I can do this, but is this something that brings me joy and fulfillment? So that was really hard, and just trial and error, and then through those experiences, having those introspection and kind of questioning, are you sure you're doing this just for yourself, and things like that really helped me to ask that. And also, a lot of the times, my family and friends who observed me saying that when you're doing that thing, we can see that you are deeply involved in that. Those kind
Mm,
of conversations really reaffirmed my belief and made sure that I'm making an well informed decision and not having second thoughts about it.
mm. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah, and there certainly is so much societal conditioning
Mm.
around what we should be doing with our lives, or the paths that we should be pursuing.
Mhm.
So having that courage to find your own path is very powerful. And I know it's not the easy road, but
Yeah.
can be very worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful that you're doing that work.
Thank you.
And Iget, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. Just to go off what Maha was saying, I think it is really important to have a sense of purpose, especially in uncertainties. Um, just because your purpose keeps you grounded, it keeps you going even when you want to give up. It really gives you hope, and it reminds you of why you even started it to begin with. So it's really important to think about who you are as a person, your values, and what makes you happy. And whatever that comes to be, that's your purpose. You don't need anyone to tell you that this is what you should be doing. Um, and it's really important to self-examine yourself and realize what you want to do. um, and for me, I check on myself sometimes to see if what I'm doing aligned with my goals, and that also helps me kind of determine what my purpose is. So for example, right now, and what my purpose has been for such a long time is to help people, to serve my community, and right now, um, it's to help provide mental health services for refugees and immigrant communities.
Mm.
But sometimes I have setbacks, of course. There are many times I think of quitting because I feel like I'm not good enough, and I struggle with imposter syndrome, so you see how that can be a bit challenging. But I remind myself of my vision and my purpose of um, why I started in the first place. And I also think about the future, like this thing that I'm doing. Think about how it's going to look like in the future, and how amazing it will be to see refugees and immigrant communities feel safe in this country, feel secure mentally and emotionally. So that's my take on the sense of purpose.
Mm. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Yeah. And, the imposter syndrome is something that so many of us are struggling with.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's so, so common. And to be so grounded in your purpose can really help to move forward nevertheless, right? To work for something beyond yourself,
Mm-hmm.
be a powerful force, and to share what you can share with the world, and to know that comes from deep personal experience
Mm-hmm.
as well. Yeah, and I'm also hearing in both of your shares just that uh, importance of listening for what the world needs,
Yeah.
right? Like what is the work that needs doing? What are the challenges, and then how can your unique strengths contribute to that, and how does that guide your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And would love to again ask the audience any questions for Maha and Iget that you have. We'll take some time to address your questions now. So we have a few here in the chat already, so we can start with them. So Jennifer is asking about the connections between purpose and well-being. So just talked a bit about that. But is there something you would like to share about that?
I can go ahead, Maha, if that's
Mm-hmm.
okay with you. Yeah. Um, so I definitely think when you're thinking about your purpose in life, your purpose in the future, your purpose of doing your work, you also have to think about your mental well-being as well, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where it can affect your mental well-being, can affect your physical, emotionally um, states. And that's why you have to take time and examine yourself, examine who you are and what you can handle before going and or moving forward with what you want to do in life. Maha, do you want to add on?
Yeah, I just want to add on to that in terms of finding a job. We say it a day job, but then it's so closely aligned with our everyday life. Like, you need to be happy with your job and feel that you belong there and you're able to contribute, so that your rest of the day or night, when you're back from work, you're able to carry that positivity into your life. So I kind of identify that, like, I think working at a place where you don't really resonate with the work, or which doesn't resonate with your purpose, in the long term, it's definitely going to affect our well-being.
Your coworkers are also really important, and it could also affect your well-being if you're in a negative environment or you're under a boss who just goes out to stress you out. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a saying, people don't leave their jobs, they leave their bosses. Yeah, has a huge impact. Yeah, and
Very
just
true.
the resilience of the work that you do, and even if you are incredibly passionate about what you do, you can still burn out doing the thing you love. So, right, we might be so passionate to address a burning social issue that
Mm-hmm.
we give up our own health or sleep or eating habits or relationships with others in that pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so how do we ensure that we are sustainable change makers in the long term?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how we can be of most service to the world.
Mm-hmm.
True.
I agree. And that also comes with balance, like balancing your mental well-being and the work that you're doing too, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't put your all in the work that you're doing. So,
That's right. Yeah,
mhm.
and it definitely impacts relationships with coworkers as well, right? If you're running on empty, how can you really be there for others or for your family? Care for others. So we've got to put on the oxygen mask first. Um, Another question from Lydia: what is your go-to low maintenance activity to center yourself?
Um, I can try to get at it. I hope
Mm-hmm.
Lydia, by centering, mentioned like having those mindfulness when dealing with stressful everyday things. I get to basics. Like, I don't mind like taking out my adult coloring book and do that, so that I can have more focus on what is going inside, what I'm feeling right now, and what is triggering that, and also ultimately leading to what I can do to improve it or prevent it the next time. So, or just as said in the introduction, do nothing, just let my mind wander, stick
Yeah.
to the basic, and not having a to-do list during the weekend, but just like going about the day just like that. I
Mm-hmm.
think that rejuvenates me.
Yes, just to go off of you, that's also what I do. So I literally just lay in bed and do nothing. So my phone is away for 5 minutes, and it's also seen to be really helpful for your brain when you're not doing anything for at least 2 minutes. Especially if you're going throughout the week, you're going to work, you're doing extra curricular activities, you have other things to do at home, and when you just sit and relax, wow, you feel like a different person.
I forgot that in a long while, and after I feel that I was stressed even during the weekday, after a
Mhm.
weekend, I realized, oh my god, I gotta go back and do nothing during the weekends
Yeah.
and just be myself.
Hmm.
Mm. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and the just doing nothing for a few minutes. I like doing just short power naps, like just 5 minutes of lying on the ground and just letting my body relax, and doing some breathing can be really helpful for recentering and re-energizing.
Power
Just as a
naps are
quick
golden.
yeah, and of course the power of just taking one deep breath. That might be the lowest effort thing, just to center immediately. We've got a question from Nadira. Where do you find mental health resources for self-care, i.e. journaling, especially for women of color?
Um, just to, I do not have specifically found a journaling for women of color, but it's not hard to see that there might be clearly some gaps in that. But I have all this while used a plain journaling, just like Sarah mentioned, a free flow where I write down whatever I feel at that moment and use that to introspect. Maybe you might have some resources.
Sure. Who was that? Who asked the question?
Nadira?
Oh, okay. So we can connect actually after the session. I have a few sources. I don't have them on the top of my head. I just have to get them down and write them out. And I can just send it your way. They're really helpful for women of color, Black, um, just minority groups. So I think that may be really helpful. Just send me a message and I can send it to you.
I might need that as well.
I got you.
Thanks.
And we have one more question here from Aaron. Uh, both of you have backgrounds in STEM. Do your colleagues in this professional field ever doubt the connection and role of well-being and resilience as just being something personal and not grounded in science?
Sorry, do you mind repeating that question again?
Yeah. So both of you have backgrounds in STEM. Do your colleagues in this professional field ever doubt the connection and role of well-being and resilience as just being something personal and not grounded in science? And
Yeah.
related to that, Jennifer asked, just as a follow-up, what might be ways that we can invite colleagues to see the value or relevance of well-being and purpose and relationships in the workplace?
I can take try to answer Mr. Miller's question if it doesn't mind.
No, go. You can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Miller, for being here. And yes, I do see that gap in people not trying to understand the signs. For example, there have been times when people who are suffering with depression having been told, like, you're just lazy to get things done, or you're just procrastinating and not being serious enough. But science has clearly shown that, like, some of the depression symptoms are fatigue and loss of interest in everything. So I do see that the many research that we have about understanding of a lot of these illness or problems haven't reached a lot of people. So, and to kind of answer Jennifer's question about how we can make those connections possible, or how to highlight the importance, I think well-being practices should be a part of every workforce in every organization, especially given the pandemic. For example, earlier today, I was talking to a person at the Ashoka Exchange networking, where she mentioned that her team leader asked to get everyone on treadmill or take a walk as they are having the team meetings. It's because 8 hours of sitting at the desk can really be taking a toll on your well-being, and you might not be really even productive. So maybe organizational change, leadership change, and also highlighting to students who are going to be the future leaders and change makers about understanding these crucial connection can definitely play a positive role in seeing this change happen.
Yes. I think you honestly touched on everything. Just to iterate what you're saying, for Dr. Miller's question, um, I think it's definitely um, an issue. I'm in the psych realm, and you would think that the professors and teachers will have a clear understanding of, um, they know the research, but it isn't put into their everyday practice with the students, especially in the pandemic. I think it's been seen. I've experienced it multiple times, where you're expected to just give your all, even in a pandemic. um, and it's really sad. It's sad that you know most professors in even in this realm don't really think about their students and what they could be going through, or even their what like there's the pandemic, yes, but there's also other things that's going on in their lives. And I've had a time where I've told my professor I just lost a brother, I just lost a friend, like not even 2 months apart. um it was really difficult. The response, wow. And it was from um the psych department. So it's just really sad that um the school doesn't, or the professors don't think about their students and what they could be going through. And just to go over the other question, I think that trainings for professors will definitely be helpful in terms of helping them understand, or help them realize how to help their students with their mental well-being. And just, I guess, having like having them, or putting themselves in the students' shoes. I think that's definitely really important. But yes.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing that, Iget, and sorry to hear you had got that response. Yeah.
Yeah, and sorry for your loss as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like really cultivating compassion, right, for each other in these times, and this compassion and empathy for what we're all going through and how that impacts our ability to, do our work and to show up. Like, we may not always be at 100% in these times, and even beyond the pandemic, right? Life happens, and we have loss. Things happen, and so to create an environment that is understanding of the human experience, and right, that includes and welcomes that and supports individuals as they're dealing with challenges. Yeah, it sounds like creating a more humane system. Hmm.
Yeah, clearly we need to work more on empathy, I guess.
I
Mm-hmm.
agree.
Thank you for sharing that. Are there any other questions? Oh, we have here a couple more. So we've got, how do you both stay motivated to work hard, especially in the pandemic?
Yeah. I graduated right into the pandemic, just right before the pandemic. So I kind of understand what Charles is mentioning, like where everything is so difficult. There are a lot of opportunities and there is more competition. But at the same time, this is all the time where you need some time off of your work. Like Iget also mentioned, you should really have that day of break, and it's not like wasting time that is popularly known or called. It in fact helps you to boost the creativity and also give you the clarity for the week ahead. So even when I was searching for jobs when the pandemic was happening, I made sure that I take a day off and do nothing related to my work or my job search. And it's been really rewarding in the long time. And I encourage you to do that as well.
Yes, just to go off of your point, Maha. Yes, the break is definitely really helpful to keep you going and motivated through the pandemic, and that also has been really helpful for me to keep motivated, because there were many times where I didn't take a break. I was just running, going, and then I would just clash, and then it'll be hard to get back up. So those breaks in between those lazy days really helped me the next day feel like more energized and ready to like take on the whole world. But it also helps when you have relationships that really encourage you and remind you of your goals and your values and where you're reaching. That was actually really helpful to me. The people that I'm surrounded with, my partner has really been helpful in helping me stay grounded and motivated throughout the pandemic.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so taking time for rest, right? Knowing that life is not a sprint; it's a marathon. That you want to be in it for the long haul. Yeah. And we have another question here from Emily. She says, "You're all amazing. Thank you for this. Do you use any mantras to keep yourself grounded and confident in your work to progress your well-being?"
I can let Igat go first this time.
Yeah, that's fine. um, for me, I have my affirmations. Um, I have that on a big wall. So there's a wall, or like a frame, but it has like an affirmation in the middle, and then I've cut out different affirmations to go along the frame. And when I feel really low about myself, when I feel like I'm just I'm just gonna give up, throw everything away, and sleep. I look at the board and I'm just like, no, I can do it. And it's really has helped me keep myself grounded and confident, because those affirmations are what I am. So I need to keep going. So that's me.
Beautiful. Is there one that stands out in particular for you?
Yes.
One affirmation, like a
Yes.
favorite one?
Yeah. So there's one, you can accomplish the hard tasks.
Mm,
Mhm.
thanks for sharing.
That perfectly sums it up. And just like, because we talked about the imposter syndrome and it's related to the confidence in our work, everybody is running so fast that sometimes we don't acknowledge or appreciate for all the great things that people around us do, be it your colleagues or classmates or even family and friends. So I make sure that even if it's a small thing, I convey that appreciation and or acknowledgement. And sometimes I go back to my past achievements and see, okay, I have done this in the past. I can definitely do it now as well.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and in terms of my own practices around mantras that are helpful, I oftentimes just ask myself in the moment, like, what do I most need to hear right now to be kind to myself? And then I say that phrase to myself. So that might be, may I be patient, or may I forgive myself, or may I be compassionate with myself and others. So things like that. Just a bit of a compassion practice. I've got one more question here from Miriam. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. How valuable is a routine for maintaining well-being?
I can go ahead. Hi, Miriam. Thank you for your question. It's really, really valuable. It's not something that you can do like today and then not do it for the rest of the days. It should be consistent, every day, every week, every month, because I've noticed that when I pause on taking care of myself, or when I feel like, oh, I'm okay, there's no need to take care of myself this week, I like clash really hard, and then when it's hard to come back up because I didn't keep the consistency. I didn't keep my routine. I didn't remind myself of my affirmation. So it's definitely really important to make sure you have a routine and that you're being consistent in taking care of yourself.
Thanks for sharing that. Maha, would you like to add?
I agree with everything Eget said, and yep, just keep a routine, especially with the sleep and the wake habits. That can make a lot of difference to your physical health and how refreshed you begin doing your work every day.
Yeah, and I would add that to be kind with yourself if you do not stick to your routine one day, because so many people can be, really upset with themselves if they miss a day and then they don't do it at all anymore, right? So just if you miss a day, just do it the next day and just keep at it. And yeah, life happens and you can't always, do everything perfectly. So not to have those unrealistic expectations that we have to do the routine perfectly every day either. And to make it flexible that as life changes, we can also change our routine to adapt.
Yeah, that's very important, and having that bit of adapting to how things change around.
Just noticing the time. So I think we'll switch to just our final journaling exercise. Just really just an opportunity for all of you to reflect on some of your main takeaways from this session. So what would you like to remember from this session? What questions remain for you? What one or two well-being practices would you like to integrate into your life? So we'll just take a couple of minutes. Just if you have a pen and a piece of paper to write with, to just reflect on your main takeaways. Finish capturing your last thought for now. You can always do some more reflection afterwards as well. And would love to invite you just in the chat. What's a main takeaway that you're taking with you from the session, or it could be a question that you are left with or would like to further investigate.
That's it.
Continue having my lazy days. Yes, I love that. Oh, great. I'm not seeing any others. Maybe there's a delay in how they are coming in. All right. Well, I think we are at time. So thank you so much for spending time with us and for your thoughtful questions. Hope you enjoyed this conversation and that some of the practices and tools and personal experiences that we've shared are helpful in your journey. And if you would like to get in touch with any of us, feel free to do so. Here are some ways to stay in touch.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being here virtually. And continue to keep taking care of yourselves.
Yes. Have those
Yes.
lazy days.
Yes, have the lazy days. Be well. Take care of yourselves and each other.
Yep.
And we've shared the PowerPoint presentation as well. So you have all the slides there and our contact info. Oh, now I'm seeing. Oh, wonderful. Giving myself permission to stop. Visual representations of affirmations. Yep, that's a beautiful one. Taking breaks when I need to. Oh, Jennifer writes, we're developing a campus-wide well-being program, and this session has reinforced my interest in inviting employees and students to explore their own purpose.
I love
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm,
We are happy about that.
yes. Well, thanks so much for sharing, everyone.